We're going to start by introducing ourselves. My name is Laura Lee. I am the CLSD Project Manager and Early Childhood Program Specialist. Many of you have seen my name in email or have talked to me before, or we've connected through office hours. I'm excited to be here with you today. So our goal today is to welcome you as a group. We had our first session on Tuesday, and so today is our last live session, but the presentation will be available on the CLSD website. We're hoping by the end of day today. I will also email out the link with some follow-up by the end of the day today, if we get that webinar up, if not later than Monday. So with that being said, I'm going to kick it off to Sean so that he can introduce himself, and then to Amy. And if we have Terry Clark here, our Amy C will be able to open up the floor to introduce yourself as well.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Sean Ross. I'm the Deputy Associate Superintendent of Academic Standards at the Department of Education. Prior to that, I was the English Language Arts Director, so I see quite a few familiar names from that role as well. We're so glad you're here. And we're especially happy. This is a really celebratory meeting. This is a really celebratory time because Arizona, we've never been awarded this grant before. This is the Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant from the federal government. Some of you may know it as the Striving Readers Grant. It's a large literacy grant awarded to states to help build and sustain quality literacy systems across the state. We have applied for this in the past. In fact, I have been on teams that have co-written for this grant a few times, and unsuccessfully until this time. And so we are so very excited about this. We're so thankful that you're here with us. We are so excited that you are going to be our partners in this and in this journey. And this really is a partnership. It really is a collaboration. I know that sometimes, hopefully not with my team, but sometimes dealing with ADE is a little like, oh, ADE. That is not the case with this, because this is all about us working together, having this unbelievable funding opportunity from the federal government to help build literacy systems and build capacity. And we're just really excited. We know how hard you work for our kiddos. You have held the world up this past year and a half, and we obviously cannot thank you enough for that. But this is such an exciting day, and it really is. I just really want to drive home that this is a really a red letter day for Arizona. We've not only have we never been awarded this grant, but it is part of a number of things that are happening with that are causing Arizona to be recognized on a national level for its literacy initiatives. And so that's a large part thanks to your work. So I just we should be really proud about today and about this accomplishment. So I'm going to kick it to Dr. Amy Boza, and she's going to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our presentation today. We're so glad to have you. And like Sean said, this is a momentous day in Arizona and is fitting nicely into some other great literacy initiatives that are happening in the state. And so it is a great time to be a literacy educator in Arizona, and hopefully we can impact students to an even greater degree so that every student can read. And we're super happy to have you, and excited to partner with you in this endeavor over the next several years.
And we're just one part of the team. This grant was actually written in conjunction with two collaborative stakeholders who we work with all the time and who do amazing work in the space of early literacy. And one of those is with us today. So Amy Corvo, do you want to say hello?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to participate today. I'm an officer with First Things First, so really focused on that birth to 5 stage and getting children as ready as possible to take advantage of the curriculum they get to kindergarten. So we're just as thrilled as my colleagues that this funding opportunity has come to Arizona. So we're building collaborative partnerships in the next years to come.
Thanks, Amy. I know Amy cut out maybe a little bit there for me. I don't know if that happened for others. So just to kind of recap, Amy Corvo is with First Things First, which is a large group dedicated to helping children in that birth to 5 space in multiple areas, getting them access to quality preschool, quality care, and then they have obviously a large role in early literacy initiatives because we know reading starts at the start, and so they do tremendous work, and we're really fortunate to have Amy with us. Our other large partner in this grant is Read On Arizona. And so Terry Clark is the State Literacy Director for Read on Arizona. She's not with us today. She's taking a well-deserved vacation. I think the first since I've known her, so I'm excited actually that she's not with us today. But I can introduce her quickly. So Read on Arizona is the collective impact model in Arizona for early literacy from birth to age 8. Its founding partners were the Arizona Department of Education, First Things First, Head Start, Helios, the Governor's Office, DES, DCS. So there were a number of founders, and Terry leads this model, which helps provide sort of an umbrella under which early literacy initiatives occur. Many of you are probably part of Read On communities in your cities or your parts of the state. And so that's that organization, and they do tremendous work. And I firmly believe, again, as somebody who helped write for Striving Readers grants in the past, that it was the addition of First Things First and Read on Arizona that helped push Arizona over the top this time. So we're very fortunate to be working with these groups, and then also just to have this collaboration, you know, across that birth to 12th grade space, because again, reading starts at the start, and we're really fortunate to have the ability to focus on that birth to 5 space, which doesn't always get the same focus, and then the 6 to 12 space as well, because we know sometimes that secondary space doesn't get the same level of attention. So we're really excited you're here, and we're really thankful, and I'm gonna kick it back to Laura. She's gonna do the welcoming presentation, and then we will be here for questions as you have them.
Okay, just wanted to play with the mute button for a minute. I also want to introduce Lori for ADE and as well for she are also our Head Start Collaboration Office. We work in conjunction with that in her absence. She too is on a much well-deserved time off, and she was a big part of this grant as well. So she's not physically with us here today, but many of you probably are familiar with her. And so with that being said, we're going to begin to share our screen. And Amy will be sharing the presentation. Throughout this presentation, it is recorded. It will be available as well. Please be sure to mute your microphones. I'm going to turn my camera off, and you feel free to throw any questions or comments in the chat. We'll be sure to address those, as well as open up the floor at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Welcome, CLSD awardees, and welcome to this webinar. Before we begin the presentation, please be sure to mute your microphones until the question and answer section, which will be available at the end of the presentation. In addition, please keep in mind that we are recording this webinar, so you may want to turn your cameras off. Also, you can use the chat feature to enter your questions in the chat so that we can answer them during or after the webinar. Congratulations, and welcome to a journey that will have lasting impacts for teachers, practitioners, children, their families, and your communities. The CLSD grant is the first grant within ADE that spans across the birth to 12th grade continuum, and you are a part of this shift, and not only understanding the science of reading, but improving by applying and implementing strategies to improve the science of reading. This presentation today will review the CLSD next steps, expectations, as well as professional development opportunities. Let's take a few moments to remember our purpose for CLSD. Collectively, our purpose is to improve child literacy skills, improve instructional staff capacity on the science of reading, and to strengthen collaboration to drive efficiency and innovation. In addition to accelerate language and literacy outcomes from birth to 12th grade in high-need schools and qualified opportunity zones, serving Arizona's most disadvantaged students. CLSD is a substantial investment of $20 million that has been awarded to 23 sub-grantees to include qualified schools, early childhood programs, and educational consortia, all who have demonstrated readiness and the ability to implement. And that is you. During this webinar, we will talk about systems of support, required asynchronous learning, implementation science, Lectio approach, comprehensive needs assessment, the EMAC system, and grants management. We are on a journey together. We are all on the same journey to improve child literacy skills, and instructional capacity on the science of reading. We understand that this journey will be a learning curve. We are here to support you with implementing your strategies and scaffolding throughout the process along the way. We understand that there are several moving pieces. The CLSD site will be a great resource for accessing support tools and the required webinars. So please take advantage of office hours for individual technical assistance needs or any subject offerings on the science of reading to come. These webinars demonstrated here are all located on the CLSD website under the Onboarding tab. Each of these short webinars can be accessed and are available at your convenience. They are anywhere from 4 to 25 minutes in length. We understand your schedules can be very hectic and busy, and therefore we have developed this process so that you can access the required webinars at your leisure. We expect that all awardees will have the webinars completed no later than October of this year, 2021. Each awardee will be required to acknowledge the completion of each of the webinars via the Educational Monitoring, Assistance, and Compliance System, otherwise known as EMAC. But please note the last webinar listed on this slide titled Comprehensive Needs Assessment. This webinar was developed by our school improvement team, and it provides a full overview of the CNA with all 6 principles. However, the CNA for CLSD includes 4 principles. Our goal here is for you to understand the purpose of the CNA and to review the CNA principles and learn how to complete your CNA. The CLSD CNA will be built into the EMAC system that each awardee will use as a reporting and database. This process will be familiar to some and potentially completed already by many of you. So some of those elements that you have already done could overflow into your CLSD CNA, which will be in the EMAC system and not GME.
The Arizona CLSD project is grounded within the implementation science framework. This approach will provide a guiding framework for participating programs while simultaneously allowing participants the autonomy to use program data to evaluate current practices, identify gaps, and determine capacity to engage in the intervention initiative, and to develop sustainable strategic planning specific to program needs. Implementation science refers to the methods or techniques used to enhance the adoption, implementation, and sustainability of an intervention. The CLSD project uses implementation science to adopt an active implementation formula designed to result in improved outcomes. The active implementation formula states that effective practices times effective implementation times enabling context will lead to improved outcomes. Awardees will participate in a combination of synchronous and asynchronous learning relative to implementation science. The National Implementation Research Network, known as NIRN, through the University of North Carolina Frank Porter Graham Child Development Institute, offers modules, lessons, and interactive coaching sessions relative to implementation science that are currently being offered asynchronously. CLSD subgrantees will be asked to participate in these asynchronous modules in addition to a live synchronous implementation science training coming in the fall. In year 1, grantees will complete the process of analysis and synthesis of needs assessments. In years 2 through 5, program teams will identify strategies and move toward implementation of research-based strategies. In concert with implementation science will be the Lectio approach. The Lectio approach is an evidence-based practice developed by Dr. Noni LaSalle and Dr. Kelly Colstrad with the Harvard Graduate School of Education. Leveraging expertise in program design and implementation science, the Lectio approach will lead subgrantees through a consultative process that focuses on analyzing and adjusting efforts for measurable impact relative to literacy systems. CLSD awardees will dive deeply into the Lectio approach. The Lectio approach is broken down into 3 areas. 1, under learning and development, is the research. In this session, we'll be sharing what we currently know about children's development across ages and stages, program design, implementation science, and community change. In the second phase, the analysis phase, we will be identifying and understanding programs and services, partners, etc., analyzing the design of current programs and services and their potential impact, and articulating strengths, challenges, gaps, etc. The third phase involves the strategic mapping and planning. Here, programs will be consolidating key data from Lectio tools and making decisions and planning for the next phases of implementation. This approach will assist local leaders in determining programs and services in their community. For example, this will become your program strategic plan. The Lectio approach and framework will allow programs the ability to 1, analyze your current literacy system, and 2, complete a strategic plan relative to your literacy system. In terms of expectations, each awardee is required to attend applicable live virtual sessions to begin in the fall. Once dates are firmed up and secured, they will be shared with subgrantees. These live sessions include implementation science training as well as the Lectio Institute of Training. To help you better prepare before the end of the calendar year, awardees will have a pre-work session prior to the live sessions. This will be the subgrantee's opportunity to have an initial meeting with the Lectio founders and trainers. You will need to plan on 8 sessions around 2 hours each, offered over the course of 4 weeks. Each session will involve training, coaching, and team time. The end result of this work will be a robust strategic plan that meets your needs for your program. This plan will be uploaded into the EMAC system and used for progress monitoring.
Next, we will transition into more details regarding the Comprehensive Needs Assessment. Each awardee will complete their applicable CNA within the Educational Monitoring Assistance and Compliance System, otherwise known as EMAC. This system may be familiar to most as it replaces the previous ELITE system. The CLSD CNA is a 2-step approach. The first approach is to complete the CNA within the EMAC system, meaning the questions are built into the EMAC system. And those questions will cover 4 principal areas. These areas include leadership, professional learning, family and community partnership engagement, and curricula. In addition, awardees will have access to a downloadable rubric resource to provide applicable scores for the data inputted into their CLSD CNA, and that is the second approach. Awardees will use the rubric to inform the CLSD CNA built into the system. Now, several awardees are either currently working on their full CNA that includes the full 6 principles or have completed it. However, the CLSD CNA is from a targeted lens of literacy. So there could be some potential overlap or some overflow that will flow into your CLSD CNA. So elements of your CNA can inform your CLSD CNA. The EMAC system is scheduled to be live by the new federal year of October 1st. The CLSD CNA will be due at the end of December of this year, which is December 31st. Now, this is just for the first year, and then we will shift to align with the school calendar year. In the previous slide, we discussed the EMAC system for the CLSD CNA. Access is required to ADE Connect in order to access the EMAC system. Awardees will need to ensure each appropriate member has access prior to the launch date scheduled for October 1st for EMAC. If you do not have access, a ticket is required to ADE Connect. Now, the EMAC system is designed to be a one-stop reporting system for all data. And some of this data includes your assurances, program narrative question updates, any data requested or required for the federal data reporting, your CNA, your literacy plan, and as well as equipped for our early childhood professionals. Now, your literacy plan, which is a strategic plan, will be developed via the Lectio approach that was discussed earlier in the presentation. So this system may be familiar to many as it replaced the ELITE system. So far, we have discussed asynchronous learning access, we have discussed the CLSD CNA, implementation science, Lectio approach, as well as access to the EMAC system. So now we will briefly go over some grants management elements. As a reminder, this grant follows a federal calendar year and not a state calendar year. So please note these dates. The grant period dates are October 1st through September 30th. Year 1 funds must be obligated by September 30th, and you have 90 days to liquidate your funds, which will be December 30th of the project end date for September 30th. However, we do understand that there will probably be quite a bit of you who are carrying over large amounts of funds due to the timing of the grant, and that is okay. Any unexpended funds are allowed to be carried over in subsequent years 2 through 4, but you must report that within your completion reports as well as account for that in your budgets. So once your completion report is completed and carryover is accounted for, the system would trigger a revision to update your budget with the total budget amount. So for example, an awardee will revise their budget to include the previous federal year carryover amount plus the current budget for the federal year full amount. So all future budgets for subsequent years should be completed prior to October 1st date so that each awardee would have a substantial approval date by October 1st. The budget for year 2 opens August 2nd and will close September 30th. So be sure to budget for the full award amount each year. It is imperative that programs do their best to spend down their complete allocation each year so that we do not leave any funds left on the table. And if you are in need of assistance to help you with your budgets or expending funds, please do not hesitate to reach out. Now, awardees are approved to submit reimbursement requests as of their substantial approval dates only. So for example, if your substantial approval date is October 1st, you may submit reimbursement requests for funds spent from October 1st and not before. Lastly, the Grants Management Resource Library is available to you at your fingertips. You will find visuals and details on how to navigate the GME system, how to complete your completion report, submit your reimbursement requests, and so much more. You can also access the library via the CLSD website under the Application Resource tab for your convenience. We have covered quite a bit of ground throughout this webinar that discuss several different moving dates. So here is a visual of the onboarding timeline. July, there were 2 welcome webinars, and you should have attended one of those. And if you were not able to attend, then you are currently listening to this webinar. Year 2 budget opens October 2nd and closes September 30th. So be sure to complete your budgets within that time frame so that you have your substantial approval date for the next federal year beginning October 1st. In addition, on the CLSD website under the Onboarding tab, asynchronous learning webinars are available right now that is due by the end of October, and these include 1 through 5 ESSA videos, MTSS, as well as a comprehensive needs assessment module. The EMAC system is scheduled to be launched by October 1, and you want to ensure that you have access to ADE Connect prior to the launch date. In addition, in the fall, there will be around 8 sessions of live virtual trainings regarding Lectio. And do plan to have about 8 sessions around 2 hours each, offered over the span of about 4 weeks. We will be sure to follow up with those hard dates once that is set and ready to go. In December, your comprehensive needs assessment for CLSD is due in the EMAC system. And then in addition to that, on the CLSD website present right now, underneath the Onboarding tab, the NERN, which is the National Implementation Network, A1 online self-paced modules are due by September of 2022. So you have time to get those completed over the span of the year. Awardees, please be sure to bookmark the Comprehensive Literacy State Developmental Grant website to your computers, desktop, tablets, whatever device that you use. This site will be your go-to for your onboarding tab in addition to the EMAC data reporting system. You will be able to find evidence-based strategies and resources, as well as the webinars that are due by the end of October and the NERN self-paced modules due by September 2022. You will also find the CLSD project narrative in addition to the guidance document that is available at the top navigation bar. So the CLSD website will be your go-to for any updates and onboarding requirements. If you have any questions, you can feel free to email clsgrant@azed.gov. The email address again is clsgrant@azed.gov. The CLSD team is excited to welcome you. We are in full expectation of the impacts each site will have in the communities across the state of Arizona for children and their families, grounding the science of reading. We will be sure to communicate updates to include any hard dates, platform launching, technical opportunities, and professional development opportunities. Thank you for all that you have done, and thank you for championing the way in the science of reading. At this time, we would like to open up the floor for any questions you may have. So feel free to either put your questions in the chat or to raise your hand. It has been a pleasure working with you, and it's going to continue to be a pleasure serving you.
All right. So thank you for attending the welcome information presentation. We want to do what we promised and open up the floor for any questions or comments that you may have. So you can either drop that in the chat or you can raise your hand, take yourself off of mute, and we'll be happy to address any of the questions that you may have. So this time is for you. It's a safe place, so feel free to share out. And while you are thinking of anything, I want to go up. Brian had a question earlier regarding the EMAC system. So I know you heard it in the presentation. It is set to be launched by October 1st, but I will tell you that many of the pieces are already built for CLSD. So we expect for it to be ready prior to October 1st, but our launch date goal is October 1. So Julie has a question. Can monthly reimbursements be submitted? What is the interval? So yes, you can submit your reimbursement requests as you would for any other grant. So for instance, for those of you who have your substantial, which everyone should have their substantial approval date right now outside of maybe just 2 programs. So you can start submitting those requests as soon as you have your substantial approval date. And then you'll be completing your completion report soon, and then also doing your year 2 budget quite soon in the next few weeks. Is there a monthly due date? So Julie, there is no monthly due date that I can think of right now. If you're talking about reimbursement requests, you draw down as you spend your funds. But for more details, there is a guidance document on reimbursement requests on the Grants Management Resource Library. So if you're already expending funds, you can start requesting those reimbursement requests. You're welcome. Anyone else? I see Shari is typing. And keep in mind, this presentation will be available on the CLSD website. And we're also going to put the onboarding timeline dates on the CLSD website too. So we're hoping to get that up by the end of the day. If not, Monday, and an email will go out to everyone, all 23 of our awardees. So with that being said, the contact information I have came specifically from what you put into your narrative reports, your eligibility and compliance form of who to contact. So if there are additional people that you want, members from your team on the email list in communications for CLSD, please be sure to email that to clsgrant at azed.gov so that we can make sure that communications are going out to the proper individuals. I'm going to drop the email address into the chat. Okay, Shari asks, when putting in 2022 grant, will it be live for August 2nd? Correct. So Shari, the budget. Yeah, so when you currently, your 2021 is where you're going for this current federal fiscal year, where we're kind of in the middle of that with CLSD for the first year, but year 2 would be 2022. You got it.
And Laura, if I could just add, I know while questions are coming in, you know, we do want to emphasize for you guys that we have really tried to make this grant feel familiar, that, you know, we are using the EMAC system because we know so many of your programs are familiar with it from Title I or from school improvement or some other interactions with the agency. And my apologies, everybody in the world decided to do things right outside of my office. So we've tried to really couch things in language and in systems that feel familiar, because we know, you know, that how much work you're doing right now. And so it's why we're using the EMAC system. It's why we're very purposely recording meetings or recording guidance and posting it on the website. Not only, you know, obviously we want you to attend, but knowing that maybe somebody can't attend could then watch it, but also just knowing the workload you guys are under. You know, you may be here now and it all makes sense, and then all of a sudden school starts and all the craziness that comes with it, and you're like, wait a minute, I know I'm forgetting something about CLSD. Well, that's going to be recorded right on our website. There's going to be a link to it right on the website. You know, Laura's here to answer questions, and so we want you to know that you're really supported in this grant, that we're really here to help. Not only that we're our presence, but also even in the way we're structuring and approaching it, we're really trying our best to couch it in ways that feel familiar and that feel like processes that you're used to just take that cognitive lift off, so that we can really focus on the real, you know, the true point of this grant, which is to improve literacy outcomes. So you know, that's why a lot of these choices were made, is again to just couch things in ways that are familiar, and again, we're going to have everything on the website for you, so that you can always go back and revisit. And then that way too, if you have any sort of staffing change, let's say somebody new comes on who's going to be overseeing the grant, instead of them feeling completely lost, they can go to that website and they can see everything.
Yes, and thank you, Sean, for saying that, because I was going to follow up with that. We've already had some staffing changes throughout this process, so at least anyone onboarding for your new staff who's going to be managing all things CLSD will be able to come to this website, access the welcome webinar, access the resources and the recorded, the required asynchronous learnings as well. Brian, you have your hand up. Please go ahead and take yourself off the mute.
Yeah, thank you. So just the fiscal year funding. So just to be clear, are we currently in fiscal year 21 with this grant?
Yes, so currently we are in fiscal year 21, and then the new year 2 will begin, will open up October, the budget will open October 2nd, but it'll be effective October 1st for year 2. Does that make sense?
Okay, so year 2 opens October 2nd, 1st, and then that's when it'll go into fiscal year 22.
Okay, I see where you're asking. You're asking regarding the budget. So no, your budget should be, when the budget opens for fiscal year, for the second year of the grant, it should be under fiscal year 22. But what is on a federal calendar year, so October 1 through September 30th, and not a state calendar year. So the budget's going to open ahead of time so that your funds, your central approval date is ready to go by the federal fiscal year. And I'll be sure to follow that up in email as well.
Okay, I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Great question. Anyone else? Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, we're going to give you back your time. We wanted to make sure that, number one, that you know that that this grant is a journey, right? So we're all on this journey together. There'll be a lot of different moving pieces and opportunities to learn as well from each other, including in-house with ADE. As Sean shared, this is the first time that we've had a grant that spans across the birth to 12th grade continuum. So we're doing something different. So we're learning different things as we go as well. We're excited that Arizona was chosen for this 5-year grant. We're hoping that after 5 years, this will continue and continue, which is why it's also important that we leave no funds on the table, right? So we know there's going to be carryover in years 2 through 4, but it's imperative that we make sure that we spend out all of our funds, make sure that you're reporting everything on time within the EMAC system and meeting those required deadlines. as well. And don't hesitate to ask questions. I don't pretend to know all the answers, but we will figure it out together. So with that being said, I think everyone put what program they're representing today in the chat. It has been a pleasure to show my face and for the whole team to greet you today. We welcome you. We're excited for all that you will do. We know the school year is going to be different for getting everything off the ground with all things COVID, right? So we're mindful of that as well, which is why we're using the website where you can access a lot of things at your convenience and your leisure within the time frames that is requested. So with that, if there's nothing else, we're going to say thank you and have a great rest of your Friday.